schedules. All right, welcome to another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm Jim Chester. This is
Luke Millette.
And you are
Wade Anunson.
Awesome, Dr. Wade Anunson. Welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
My uncle would always say it's good to be seen.
Great to be seen. Great to be breathing air today.
Yeah, I know you have a big event coming up. Do you want to just kind of promo what you guys are doing this weekend up there in Wisconsin?
Sure. Currently, I am the president of the Chiropractic Society Wisconsin. For many of you who don't know what goes on in the state of Wisconsin, we've had two organizations. As about 9 years ago, the Chiropractic Society Wisconsin was started as a result of some of the legislative efforts and some of the direction of the arguable rogue association that we had for years in Wisconsin called the WCA, which was a very strong organization, very instrumental in efforts in Wisconsin to care for both our members and the getting chiropractic opened up in the state, so to speak. So it was strong, and it went a different direction for drugs, and that's why we were started, because that leadership was moving in a direction very medicalized. And losing the chiropractic foundation. So we started the Chiropractic Society Wisconsin, and we've been growing ever since. This is our 9th year, and we'll celebrate 10 next fall, which we're also excited for that 10-year reunion. Which brings us to today. We're presenting 3 different seminars, big conferences this year. For the last couple years, the last several years, we've been building in our fall summit, which is a 3-day conference that's been pretty exciting. It's been a blast to get all kinds of different great speakers coming in, and that's what we were lacking with our other association and whatnot. So as we started to move forward, we had this idea with the timing, and last year, even though it was COVID in 2019 or 2020, we were, it's all a blur. We had our biggest conference in the fall, and that was live. That was a live experience. So docs were pumped and jacked to just get it there in person, which was awesome. So we springboard off that into this spring and are having VaxCon 21. And VaxCon 21 is the pros and cons conference that's going to look at in detail obviously with vaccination, what patients and what docs should know and could know to put that information into a package and an understanding so we can help our communities better understand their choices. So what's interesting is we're getting a lot of media right now that's trying to pick it apart as an anti-group, as an anti-motive. And you know how that goes. It is a spin. It's a spin on anything that doesn't agree with that mainstream narrative. And what's really fascinating, and all you docs listening can attest to this, where have we lost the concept of informed consent? I was involved. I'm also the legislative chair and now co-legislative chair, as we have other members that are helping out that team for our association. So I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. I get to testify on a regular basis. I have a little close proximity there. I've done so on many occasions for reasons much in the majority are into health freedoms. One was to stop the drug intervention of chiropractors being able to prescribe drugs. That was a huge stop for us in regaining the foundation for chiropractor principles. And the rest lately have been all around. One was informed consent. We were involved with legislation that actually protected docs, because we along with nurse practitioners, podiatrists, optometrists, were all excluded while the medical doctors got themselves free. So we went down, we combined our efforts and coordinated with several other professions, and very successfully passed legislation that supported all of these caregivers with informed consent. So what that means for many of you is docs were sleeping at home, totally unaware that this was jeopardizing their practice. And without getting into too deep into the woods there, what it was really up against, if we wouldn't have had that legislation, then the average Joe could look on the internet and read whatever they wanted, come back to their doc and say, you should have known I can find this on the internet, therefore you're responsible for it. Now that sounds insane, and it is, because that would have been not peer reviewed, it would have been consumer reviewed. And so your ability to define informed consent, for example, in my office, means I can't be aware, Jim, that you find information all over the internet, and I can't begin to know what you've read. Therefore, I can't begin to opine on all that. I can opine on what we do and what the risks are. So that stems back into this whole thing about vaccinations, which is, does the patient not have the right to understand all facets of anything that goes in their body? And that's what this is about this weekend.
Super pivotal. Thank you for doing what you do and stepping in and supporting and leading.
Absolutely. I don't know another way. I mean, we are patient advocates first. That's what we do.
So if you could maybe tell us your chiropractic story and what originally influenced you to become a chiropractor.
I came from a large family of 7 kids. So there was 9 of us. I was second to the youngest. I was having chronic ear infections. And my mom actually worked for a medical doctor out in the state of Washington before they moved back to Wisconsin. And he was, that was back in the day where you had a GP and they were more holistic. And so his advice was home remedies first, drugs last. And that was when pharma did not have the influence. So fast forward, I was an athlete. And once I had ear infections, I got adjusted. And that was the only thing that made a difference. Yeah, there's some feedback. You guys getting that?
No.
Okay, it's just me. Not sure where that's coming from with my headphones, but nonetheless, that kind of set the stage. And then I knew from that point, I'm like, I want to be a chiropractor. I mean, I was literally 5 in kindergarten when I had pneumonia, and then my parents took me back to the chiropractor because I told them my shoulder hurt, which was a common symptom with pneumonia, and they heard it as though I got pushed off the log from a buddy when we were playing in the woods, and I landed on my shoulder. So they're thinking chiropractor. He adjusted me and told my parents to take me to the medical doctor because he thought I had pneumonia. They said, hey, wait, why can't we just wait? Normally he does really well. He said, no, I think he has pneumonia. And sure enough, I was diagnosed with pneumonia. Within a couple hours, I was bouncing off the walls. And they couldn't figure out how I responded so quickly. And that was 5 years old, and chiropractic saved me then. And then when I was in high school, I tore my shoulder playing baseball. Messed around with medics for the first 3 weeks. Then they wanted to do surgery. And my mom said, that's it, we're going to the chiropractor. So she took me to my chiropractor. He adjusted me, never even touched my shoulder. And when I left, I could shake his hand. Before that, I couldn't grip a baseball. And within 2 to 4 weeks, I was back playing again. No surgery needed. And I'm still an athlete today. So that's my chiropractic story.
That's really cool. You know, it's always the influence of parenting and the lack of knowledge like we're talking about today. And what are people doing to rear their children today? And a holistic style of upbringing was something that was unavoidable because that's just the way things were at that decade of where you were like when you were being raised up. And now we're looking at this informed consent thing where everybody's afraid of everything and everything's the boogeyman. And we have to, feel like everything's going to make us ill or sick or in fear. And just imagine if you had been brought up in that era when that was the norm where it is today. So, I think that you getting back to where you are now, being a chiropractor and learning how to lead from the front, it's all because of the holistic life that you were afforded. And I think that so many times when people consider chiropractic, they don't ever consider that it's a holistic way of life. They think it's just, oh, I got a problem, I need to get adjusted. Or you have some type of a symptomatology that's manifested into your body. You got to go see the chiropractor because you got banged up in a car crash. But like you being a little boy, going in, getting adjusted, it helped you perpetuate a better future. And then you being the young man with the banged up shoulder, you go and get adjusted and it perpetuates you to be a future doctor. So I think a lot of times what you're talking about is very ripe for today. What you're doing on this following weekend is you're bringing people together to have informed consent for families. I think that that's really what is so important, and what I can loop it all back together with is the importance of freedom of choice and the importance of making informed decisions based on not only your health, but your family's health.
Yeah, that's perfect. One of the things I didn't get to, because if you don't mind me sharing, that'll kind of tie up a loose end with this too, is in our profession, I just found a really cool stat out today, and it's worth sharing with you on this, Jim and Luke, is that we were talking to, so this is a little sidebar. We were talking to an insurance agent who we've found to help our members with a program with health insurance that actually allows the small business owner to get access to affordable health care, right? Because the costs are high unless you have some form of group plan. So this is a plan that allows for smaller numbers, like small clinics, the doc, maybe his bride, and maybe a staff member or 5, whatever it is, but the small. My point for this is he threw a stat out today, and this is what they know about chiropractors compared to the rest of the population. You're going to love this. 1/18th. The amount of cancer in chiropractors overall is 1/18th that of the average. So as a population, they want to insure us. Isn't that cool? They want to insure us. So when you talk about modeling after a healthy population, I got sick, and that's why I brought this up. I got sick because I was living a life that was healthy. I exercised regularly. I'm still an athlete. I competed. I ate healthy. I did detoxifications. My waist size, my body fat, I was anywhere between 8 and 11% given my history. So I've never overweight. And I was diagnosed with cancer in 2019. And I don't like talking about myself with that, but I think there's a point where you start to see I needed a lesson and a journey. I didn't need another journey. But when you talk about the hero's journey and you talk about what we've been through, I didn't want to have to deal with that. I mean, it wasn't even my vocabulary. I was going to die of other things, not that. Why? Because I lived healthy. But what I discovered was A plus B plus D, A plus B plus C plus D does not equal E. And what I'm getting at there is it's not linear. So it forced me to ask questions. 2 things here. It forced me to ask questions, to think outside the box and accept that I don't have all those answers. Now that sounds like a given, but how many times do we tell ourselves, if I do this, I eat this, then I am? And that's not all wrong, but there's some things that that didn't add up. And that's what it opened me up to. It opened me up to the possibility that if this can happen to me, then how many others can this happen to? And so where would I make this correction? Where would I shift? What would I need to know? How would I need to learn? And lastly, what does the universe want from me? What does the universe need me to be? Who does it need me to be? And although those questions didn't come out right away, the one thing that did come up, and I shared this in a podcast, was because my patients want to know too. And during that time, I didn't talk about it. I still practiced. I only missed 4 days or 5 days, 5 work days to get cancer treatment that was basically just extrusion. It was basically pulling the thyroid out and no radiation. I did not do any of that. The rest was all natural. I worked 6 months prior to that, everything I could, because the size, I was having problems swallowing. So I felt like the professionals I attracted around me were fantastic. I mean, all the the people I had surrounding me that had knowledge, I was blessed. I mean, people were trying to help, offer me advice, and it was fantastic. And it was confusing as well because some of it was blatantly wrong. And I didn't know that until you go through it and you start looking and digging and reading and researching and looking for answers and realizing that in some of those scenarios, such as chelation, that would have actually harmed my body even more because it wasn't spreading into other areas. But once I released it, there's a lot of destruction that can come out of doing something. It's kind of like just knowing enough information to be dangerous, right? So with that said, I was traveling inconveniently. And again, as a blessing, it was 2019, because if it was during 2020 and COVID, I wasn't going to Oregon. I wasn't going to Washington. I wasn't going to be flying out there regular to get holistic care and be treated and then come back and still be in my office and only miss a half a day. So it was intense, but it was great. I wouldn't change a thing. And the first thing I realized when I got diagnosed was, besides holy shit, what does this happen? You know, because I went in with a 5% chance it was cancerous. Otherwise, it's 95%. If you have any nodules on your thyroid, how old are you guys, if I may?
34.
42.
Okay. You have a 34 and a 42% chance that you have thyroid nodules based on your age, because it's a direct relationship. So 50, you have a 50% chance that you have nodules on your thyroid. Nodules are normal with our development over time. Cancer doesn't necessarily have to be. But the point is, you went in there with those stats and then you come out and go, I'm the least likely. I didn't have any worries. We were just getting it checked out because it was a lump. I didn't have any pain. I didn't have any other symptoms. I wasn't diabetic. I didn't have any of the other chronic inflammatory markers. It was just boom, it was there. And it started to get to be a problem swallowing as the more I got conscious of it. So it was growing. I knew at that point when I got diagnosed, besides being devastated then, it shifted right to, this is a blessing. I didn't know how. I didn't know why. But I just knew it was, and I was receptive to the answer. I just knew it. And that was probably the most bizarre thing. Just like knowing that I'd been given a gift, but I wasn't ready to hug it yet. I wasn't ready to embrace it. I didn't like feel grateful yet. I just knew I would be, if that makes any sense. And then it's been a great experience thereafter, because I discovered a lot more about myself, and I also learned how to help other people now, because I had to dive in so deep to find out and solve and break through the myths about certain cancer cures when it doesn't apply to every cancer. So that's valuable information when it comes back to it. So I'm sharing that piece because it gave me a foundation. If I didn't have a chiropractic philosophy, I'd have been a victim. If I didn't have a chiropractic philosophy and trust in innate intelligence and tapping into source, then I was just looking for the next thing, and I was afraid, and someone had to care for me, and somebody had to fix me, and I was broken. Therefore, here I am, vulnerable. Yes, I was vulnerable, but not from that perspective. It was about becoming more vulnerable. And in the grand scheme, how many patients, people, especially today, and you guys both know this, are not empowered with any confidence about their immune system? In fact, quite the opposite. It is being torn down as though they have zero capacity to defend themselves, and they need the government for everything, absolutely everything. Permission, the overreach, you got it, everything.
So what are some mantras that you live your life by? Or maybe what are some of your favorite motivational quotes or words of wisdom?
Well, that's a tough one there, Luke, because I'm reading all the time. I'm influenced by a lot of different philosophers. I enjoy reading in my green books. I enjoy right now looking at martial arts and understanding how to better get more yin with my yang energy, which has been part of my health and healing. So if I was to look at a quote offhand, I don't have that answer, but I would say, logic does not need dressing up. Lies do. And so if truth does not mind questions, then why does lies and myth absolutely prohibit them. That's a paraphrase of a number of different concepts, but that is so broad in my mind right now. It's so piercing that that's what I'm left with every day, thinking, how do I share what's in my heart and truthful for folks? And I don't mean my truth. That's also a challenge I'm having. Everyone's claiming their truth. I'm talking about the truth and what the difference between the truth is and my truth. It could be a world of difference. So instead of my truth being so much value, how about the truth? Like, here's an example of a truth. You guys know this, universal intelligence, the 33 principles. That'd be my quotes, because that's how I live. And that is, the body is self-healing and self-maintaining, all under the guise of the nervous system. And the nervous system is tapped in with a life force. So if that were the case, then how has our body responded to pathogens for this many centuries? Nobody wants us to know that has any power with the propaganda of the media. You just are supposed to not be aware of that. And that's infuriating to me, because I see the value in human beings. Chiropractic is simply my medium. My real gift is to hold up a mirror in front of somebody and go, this is how brilliant you are. See, that's you. That's how brilliant you can be. And my job, I feel, is showing them that. And I do that through chiropractic by believing in their capacity to heal and mend, and then empowering them for independence on their own terms.
You know, Dr. Wade, it reminds me of the old saying that if you always tell the truth, you'll never have to remember what you say. And I really believe that that's something that it's in the forefront right now, is if we do continuously tell the chiropractic story, we'll never have to remember what the story is, because the story is so true. And that's why chiropractic has been kind of piecemealed apart over the years. And people are saying, oh, well, this is a word that's in chiropractic. We can start manipulating it into this paradigm. And that's a phraseology in chiropractic, but we can manipulate and put it into this other medical paradigm. And we can start to disembody the whole chiropractic philosophy and make it into another philosophy. And that's why I love the chiropractic profession and philosophy, because it's irrefutable. And it was built with strength, and it was built with truth, and it was built with honesty. And it's way different than anything that anybody can conjure up today. And that's why the profession is so strong, and for the philosophy around it. And that's why they come in and they try to medicalize it. Like you were saying earlier, how you stood up for the state of Wisconsin. They try to medicalize it and they try to bully it because the truth is so strong, and they try to manipulate it from the top down. And that's what they're doing with the schools, is they come in and they take the top down, they manipulate the top person, and then matriculates to the rest of the student base and the future of the chiropractic profession, with the chiropractor being misled based on the truth that they are being born into. So we definitely have some big chess moves to make in order to save what you're saying, the irrefutable truth. And it's such a broad feeling, and it's piercing, like you said, as well. And if we don't take it for the value that it was created upon and protect it for what it is, all chiropractors out there, patients, whoever's listening, you will eventually understand what it is to protect the sacred trust. And that's what Dr. Wade and Luke and I are talking about right now, is protecting that sacred trust. And whether it's at a legal level or whether it's at a practitioner level or a patient level, that's what you talked about earlier, is being the advocacy first. And if we don't advocate for truth within this paradigm, then other people will take it and start manipulating it and conjuring up their own recipes around it. And then people will definitely not understand what chiropractic is. And then it becomes, like you said, propaganda, and people think it's just for headaches and neck pain and back pain and car crashes.
Yep. And chiropractic exists as a result of the truth. It only exists as a result of the universal principles that are irrefutable, as you stated, like gravity. You can argue with it, you can fight it, you can disagree with it all you want, and then jump off the roof and watch how it works. Just irrefute it all you'd like. You can deny people their human power and lie to them about their immune system, and lie to them about something that may or may not exist to the extreme that is being said. We know the corruption that's involved with it. You can see the corruption, you can feel the corruption, and yet there's a part of society that is so unconscious to that. I mean, of course, it brings me to mind, right, the conversation that my wife and I have been having, and she is definitely part of my spiritual muse, because she draws me out of 3D into 5D. And the 3D consciousness is bickering, fighting, divisiveness, disagreement, separateness is probably the best word, the separateness from each other and the source, while 5D is beyond the even acknowledgement of that. It's the embodiment of it. So the conversation is not even in the matrix. Like, why are we even discussing this stuff? Like, how did we get to the point where we need that to survive and then live, like take a trip, like you'd mentioned, and go to the grocery store? I mean, how do we get from the body's a self-healer all the way to there in light speed time? And that's what's challenging, is to stay in a 5D state when the world is just, the matrix is right there, just churning and distorting and misleading. It's just crazy. So we find this just every day as a challenge compared to a year and a half ago. You know, like before that happened, we didn't even realize. So we talked about just pre-show was, I'm thankful I got up and am able to breathe today. Actually moved because I had class last night too, but breath, just the fact that I'm breathing air, that's a gift. I mean, what else are we losing as we speak with our human rights, that just because they're not gone yet, it doesn't seem real? But it's quite real, and it's quite in our face.
So how do you think the whole world would change if every person started getting adjusted?
I'm going to answer this two ways, Luke. The first is, wow, what kind of world would that be if people were adjusting, as the body is a natural adjuster to our environment, which is how we as human beings have adapted this long. So I would say amazing, right? Amazing. As BJ was bound and set to free all the jails in the prisons, because that was a subluxated mental thought. That was the body out of state. And all those records disappeared, of course, for the asylum. That was documented, because can't have that into the public, that you can actually influence psychology with chiropractic in the nervous system and manifesting. That's the first answer. Absolutely amazing and unfathomable. The second one is, I've let go of the condition that I have to make or need everyone to understand. And I want to qualify this. Because we all have different values, I have a low traditional value. What does that mean? It means I don't need to have the repetition of a Christmas ceremony every year. Some people do. My wife is high traditional. She loves ceremony and routine. When we apply chiropractic through a traditional lens, then that's like me having my good book, and everyone needs to see this book the way I see it. And that's what I want to do to the world, is I want to change the world so they see this book the way I see it. I don't feel that way. I feel this way. This book is freaking amazing. You should check this book out. You want some of this? Look how fun this is when you understand this book. This book is a tool. It's an instrument. It's a way of life. It's a number of different things. It's like Qigong. Qigong is this, if you've seen anyone do Qigong or Tai Chi, you get what I'm talking about with these movements, and you wonder, you see a group in the park and they're using it for the elderly, and it's just supposed to be this spiritual thing. It's actually a very powerful martial art that you can take people out with it. And my point for that is, it is a tool just like that serves multi-purposes. Chiropractic is, I think, way more powerful in terms of the broad stroke of it. But I let go of the agenda to have to change the world, and I'm here to support the natural evolution, which is human beings are so powerfully made that we haven't even tapped into all that. But chiropractic is the closest thing I know of that can influence our natural state of empowerment. Like human potential is kind of cliche, but we're really talking about human potential, the strength of this immune system to go, I'm adapting to this next mutated bug, just like the same biological continuum the bug is on, trying to adapt to the next drug that comes out to try to kill them. It's adapting as well. But they don't want to talk about that because there's no money in it.
Bingo. And that's why I was waiting for you to get to that statement. And the statement is there's no financial exchange for healthy people. The system that's been developed. We're still on a conveyor belt technology systems of the paradigm of medicine. We haven't evolved fast enough with the advancement of the adapted body. The body's so adapted, but the systems that are trying to control us right now has not adapted with the body. We're still living in an archaic style of let's drug it out, cut it out, burn it out, which like you said earlier, there is a time and place for that. And there is an opportunity for that to save somebody's life. And there is an opportunity for that to be an intervention that's necessary to the human body, which is the reason that there are medical doctors and there are, pharmaceuticals. But when we talk about like the larger scope of this, we're still living in a past system that is showing time after time that humanity surpassed it. And they're just trying to hold us back with it now. And that's what we're seeing ourselves being struggled back by a system that we've advanced beyond. And that's the 5-dimensional thing that you're talking about, is we're so far beyond it. We don't even know that this thing's happening if they didn't purvey constantly with media influence to tell us that there's something that's making us sick. We wouldn't even know. Like I love the meme of the guy that's like down by the river that if he didn't have a cell phone or TV, he wouldn't even know there's a pandemic going on. Like
true. That's true.
Like, you wouldn't even know until you like walk down the street and you're like, what are all these dummies doing with masks on? Like, what are they trying to prove? Like, who are they trying to prove? Are they afraid to talk to each other? Like, that's the only thing that a person could rationally think. But here we are in our 5D brain, like you were saying, reiterating that back to the medical model that's been embarked upon us and we're thrust into it, because the common person would be like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. That's okay. I don't want to do that. Like, go ahead and do that, but I'm not going to do that. And I think that that's what we're saying is if everybody got adjusted, the paradigm would shift to where that wouldn't even be an idea that people would even think that was okay to adopt, because their bodies would all be tuned and attuned to advancement and development and being able to basically be healthy. But there's no money in health. And that's why the AMA tried to kill chiropractic on the woke case, because they tried to tell people that chiropractors were quacks and this is quackery and those guys aren't doctors and they can't help you. But what would happen is if everybody got adjusted, they would really believe that the power of the body that made the body could heal the body. And they would know that this philosophy was true. And I love what you said about that, is there is no money in making healthy people. There's only money in the overhead of sick people with the sick paradigm that we're living through and with.
Yeah, there's so many places we could go with this too, Jim. Based on time, I'll keep it really light, but I shouldn't say really light. I'll try to keep it as light as possible. But that direction with the question about vaccines and why we're having the vaccine conference, the vaccine topic is very misleading to our population. When we say, what battle do we want to pick as chiropractors? We're not anti-vaccine. And I want to say that, and I'm not here trying to speak for everyone, but I'm here saying I'm a patient advocate, which means the patient has the right to understand the risks and the benefits. Well, what are the risks, doctor? Well, the risks are such that the theory of vaccination is pretty cool, but the actual execution, the actual delivery, as we know, because I take care of vaccine-reacted folks, adults and kids, and it's I'm searching for the right word. It's going to be infuriating, but the bottom line is it's reprehensible. It is a crime to have a family split up, divorced as a result of the strain that it takes to raise, let's just say, adult children in a helmet as a result of an injury that they've secured their own amnesty from any liability because of some of the legislation that was set in place. And so when we look at what am I going to do if I don't share information, and I had a lending library that was literally dissolved because the books would be checked out, taken, checked out, brought back, and then some would not be brought back, and it just kind of dissolved. But it was information on understanding things like shot in the dark, literally history of vaccine awareness books, right? And it's always been a challenge in our profession. Like, how much do I invest in teaching our patients about this? Like, is it a battle I really want to fight? Because I can help a lot of people without being polarizing, right? And so, but that's what's so challenging right now is I can't just sugarcoat it. I don't want to sugarcoat it. I don't want to be part of the problem, which is, oh yeah, we're for this. It's not, I'm not for it or against it. I'm for the patient. The patient can then choose, and I'll support the patient either way, because ultimately it is their choice. And sometimes it's backing up in 3D and saying, by the way, do you realize you have a choice? And they're kind of dumbfounded. They don't realize they have a choice because society is trying to make that choice for them. And sadly, based on even disc behavioral styles, 45 to 48% of the population is amiable, which means that's what's happening. They're going to go with whatever's told. They're not going to confront. They're not going to challenge. They are going to be following the rules.
Well, it goes in step with when you were a kid and your mom would be like, hey, if you jumped off, your friend jumped off a bridge, would you jump off the bridge?
Exactly.
You'd be like, no, I'm not doing that.
Jim, I got lectured.
That's where we're at.
I got lectured. I love that you just said it. I'm laughing because I just shared it with a patient. I said, when you were a kid, I had, all my other siblings. I was number 6. So I had 2 older brothers and 3 older sisters. And so, yeah, I got my share of beatings, deservedly so. I'm not a victim. I'm part of that equation. But here's where I'm at today. And it made me who I am. And when my mom would say, your brother or your sister, and they ran with this crowd and they got in trouble here, and I learned, and I understand, she's like, I heard this over and over, to your point. Just because Johnny does this, just because, Pete, Sue, and Bill do this, does that mean you have to do it? And it was this no, over and over and over again, to realize I'm the one who chooses. I'm the one to get to answer, or I get to ask questions. My wife will give me a hell of a time because I'll go in and I'll ask 21 questions and I don't purchase it. And it doesn't mean I'm playing games. It means I'm literally trying to understand whether it works for me or not. And I have questions I need answered. So this general curiosity is, and maybe this will tie that last loose end up. I went back with the cancer story. For those of you who wonder, it's like, well, what was the cause? Were you just bad luck with thyroid cancer? No, in the process, I discovered I was a hemochromatosis, which is an iron toxicity disorder. It means my body latches onto iron at a much higher rate than the average person. It's a genetic trait, and I have what's called homozygous trait, which means my mom and my dad have it. So having siblings, what do you think I did once I discovered I had it and had cancer? I worked on helping my siblings make sure they had at least some way to find out if they did. And a couple of my siblings do, and actually a couple don't, and 2 haven't gotten checked yet because it doesn't fit into their box, right? So why is that important? Because when you're iron tox, and I've discovered that a good part of the population actually is iron high versus high in anemia. And that's because of our food, and that's because of all the modernization through our agronomics. And then it's affected the manufacturing, and that's where we get our foodstuffs because it's fortified with iron. So I was running iron toxicity at 88% saturation, not 100, but 88 is pretty high. And my ferritin was over 470. Dr. Mercola talks about his dad in a book, and he was near 1,000. He was a hemochromatosis. He was iron tox. And so what does that mean to any of you listening? So what? It's rare. Not as rare as you think. It's 1 in 276 of any of people of Scandinavian descent. Well, I'm the lucky one. But guess what? I have a health philosophy. I have a foundation of healing that recognizes the body is amazing. So for me to have this information to then internalize it, understand it, and share it with others, that's the rest of my journey. And the reason is this: the top 5 preventable deaths or diseases that we experience as human beings, the most notable causes that people die from: heart disease, cancer, stroke, Alzheimer's, dementia, and diabetes. Okay? All these chronics have to do with relating back to your diet. Well, if you're iron toxic, then you're creating ROS, reactive oxidative species. Oxidative stress is the destruction that's driving all those, period. If you don't know your iron tox, you can live healthy, you can exercise, you can have lean muscle mass and body weight. You can have a great outlook on life, have a great profession like chiropractic, and get checked on a regular basis for 40 years and still develop cancer, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia. Why? Because oxidative stress, no matter what you're doing, is the foundation of a burning fire. It's like coals. That fire was never going out until I actually discovered the fire. So I was iron tox, mercury toxic, and lead toxic from cumulative stressors in my life over time, and my thyroid was saving my life. My body had a built-in mechanism to save and store that heavy metal in an area, so that when they went in and first we did, the ultrasounds to figure out where it was, how big it was it growing, when do we need to get at this? I said, look, I don't want surgery. I'm going to do whatever I can naturally first, but I'm going to give myself this much window. What do you think? He goes, well, I wouldn't do it, but you can do it. I'm like, I'm doing it. And until I can't swallow, I'm not going to be back. So once we discovered what it was, then they went in and it was all encapsulated. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing. My body was protecting me. It was doing what it should do to keep those toxins out of my system. The sad thing, there was a consequence because I discovered it late. That's where I want to help people. So if we can measure something like that, get it done fairly inexpensive, determine if it's a problem, great. Now we can get at it, because therapeutic phlebotomies, learning to understand your iron intake, and then learning how to handle it and live healthfully in terms of antioxidants. But you can't solve it with antioxidants alone, because I was getting plenty of those. You got to actually get rid of the iron that's creating the driving force and destroying the body from the inside. So little did I know that both my parents and my dad's parents and both my mom's parents, after the fact, as I funneled this down from that tree, and I realized if my mom had it and my dad had it, who had it above them? One of the parents, if not both. So the discovery this late in the game is amazing, because nobody checks for it. Nobody checks for it. So I had a doc just tell me on a patient that was diagnosed with 2 real quick stories. One was a liver cancer patient, and because he drank, they called it cirrhosis. Cirrhosis has many forms. They never checked his iron. They just diagnosed him with alcohol-induced cirrhosis and gave him not much time to live. Fortunately, his wife was a patient. She wanted to get him in. He wasn't keen on chiropractic because he was a science researcher. So finally, he hurt his back. Then I became logical for him.
You're popular.
Yeah, I became popular. We adjusted him for his back pain. He started feeling better, got him back up. He was ready to go. And I said, hey, by the way, how are you doing with your cancer? Have you had any labs done? You mind if I take a peek at your iron? He said, sure, I'll send them to you. I checked them. They didn't even do a full iron panel, which means you can't know what his iron really is. Why did I care? Because it's a driver of those 5 diseases. So when we checked it out, sure enough, he was 91% saturated, and he was in the 800s with his ferritin. So you need first the correct panel to discover it. And 2, once you do, when I showed him back to the cancer specialists, They didn't think twice. They agreed he needed therapeutic phlebotomy and quick. And this guy's turned around. He had since moved away to Indiana, but he's doing fantastic. And another one was a doc that completely bucked me even asking, like, why do you want to do that? We have our iron right here. And all they looked at was ferritin, which is one component of it. It's a fifth of what they need to see. And so I'm sharing those two stories because medically you can't find what you're not looking for. And they're not looking for a driver for disease. They're looking for treatments, back to your point. And that is, if it's not financially lucrative for them to do anything by looking at iron, nothing, zero financial gain for them. Yet my driving purpose is to help folks live healthier lives.
But it could save lives.
Heaven forbid. And by the way, I'm surrounded by incredible colleagues, and such as yourself. You guys are colleagues. You're promoting our profession. You're getting involved. You love it, but you love it for your own reasons, which is great. The help you've experienced, the fact that it's logical, it makes so much sense to you. And it's for the cause of who? It's cause for human beings to live their best self. So I acknowledge you guys and appreciate the work you're doing to bring patients toward chiropractors and teaching the message of self-healing and maximizing their life. So my thanks to you guys and anybody who are advocate for our profession. Man, I love it. Thank you so much.
So where do you see chiropractic going in the next 20 years?
I see everyone involved right now. I have concerns. I definitely have concerns. This profession, like right now, the timing with what we're doing is we're positioned extremely well. I've heard that for years. We've heard it for years. I've seen it nearly slip away. I'm concerned because I also have instructed on campuses. So I'm postgraduate instructor for technique, and I've gotten to see what the students are not learning and what they're not thinking about and what they're not really clear on, which it breaks my heart. And I see a lot of brightness in the future yet, but why are we getting taken away from it? Jim, it's back to your point about the top down in schools and what happens when the CCE takes PhD docs with zero philosophy, all science, no logic, no understanding vitalism, and just teaching that piece with no other regard. They know what they're doing by kicking out weaker chiropractors, in my opinion. And it's not because these people are not bright. It's because the system is not allowing them to have that philosophical awareness anymore, to have the full body what chiropractic is, which is unique and different. It's this now blended view, like you're supposed to be an exercise fitness person, and you're supposed to be an acupuncturist, and you're supposed to be a modality operator. And, the last thing we do is we adjust. No. That's the first thing we do. That's the primary economic engine of a chiropractor that has, in my opinion, personal opinion, has the biggest magnitude of impact on a human body. Out of all the arrays of things that we could do, and again, this is my opinion, an adjustment is the one thing I would choose to do for that patient if I could do one single thing for them. It wouldn't be recommending nutrition. It would be adjusting them. So, Luke, did I answer your question? I think chiropractic, if it's in the right hands, we have an incredible future, but it's a fight. It's like our freedom. This is a freedom for patients that they're losing. They're losing the ability to choose it. And when their bodies are forcibly toxic, it's going to impact the results of chiropractic.
Well, what they're doing, Dr. Wade, is they're removing, number one, charisma, number two, love, number three, objectivity. They're removing that out of the practitioner that's teaching. And that's the problem, is they're removing the charisma and the love from the system. And they just want it to be medical model. And that's why I've always told people, if you want to practice that, then go to med school and go practice that. But if you want to be a chiropractor, practice with give, love, serve. Practice with the inherent scope that chiropractic was founded upon. That's what makes a chiropractor. That's what makes a chiropractic education. And that's what scares you. And that's what is the reality today is they're removing the charismatic leadership out of the schools. And they're getting a bunch of bean counters in there that are just telling people to go pass boards. So that's where we're at right now. And I still think that there's enough of the old front leadership that are subluxation based chiropractors. And that's really why we exist. And thank you for the acknowledgement. We exist to keep free speech in chiropractic. We exist as a show to support the subluxation based chiropractor that believes in universal intelligence and innate intelligence, that the body has the power to heal itself. And that's why we are running as hard as we do with 2 shows a week. And that's why we outproduce everybody in this ecosystem, because I know that I'm at a race to arms to share as much knowledge about chiropractic as I possibly can while my heart beats as hard as it does, because I know that the world needs this message. And it's not about me. It's not about Luke. It's not about you. It's about those people that need to have some type of a message that is against the grain from what they're getting in mainstream propaganda media. And that's really what this truth is coalescing with all of us today. Is it's your knowledge as being the practitioner, the healer, the care provider, the leader, but it's also us as the advocates and as the filmmaker, as the journalist, as the creative source over here that really believes that everybody should have a right to get checked and adjusted regularly as necessary from cradle to grave. And they're removing that from the schools. And they want this to be a medically practiced profession, which it's not. And they'll never win. And even if it's the last chiropractor standing, they're going to win it with innate intelligence and subluxation. It's never going to become one or the other. It's going to be one way. And that's why when we come to this crux and we come to this like blitzkrieg of them trying to say, hey, it's only medical way. No, it's not. That's why we work tirelessly for the chiropractic profession. And that's why what we do makes a difference. And that's why when we get great leaders like yourself to say, hey, let's do a show, we shift our schedules around to make sure that happens. And that's why everybody that's being marginalized with their truth, we support them. The Ben Tappers of the world, we support him. You know, the Zach Almies of the world, we support him. The people, the Billy DeMosses of this world, we support him. The people that are being marginalized because they are willing to tell the truth and be outstanding and say, no, I'm not doing it that way. That's not even chiropractic. You guys need to learn what chiropractic is and adapt to us. And see, that's where I get fired up, is because I think that the world should adapt to chiropractic as much as they want us in the chiropractic mindset to adapt to them.
Right. You know,
there's no blurred line.
No, you're right. And the funny thing is they already want it. They don't get to hear it because the mainstream will not allow and promote that. They're not going to allow and promote something that doesn't serve the community, that provides the ads, provides the network for their distribution, provides the propaganda that serves themselves in the mainstream industrialized medical model, the industrialized machine. Once you enter in, which is now earlier and earlier, as you and I both know, through massive inoculation schedules that indoctrinate the body into a state of chronic inflammation and food allergies as a result of all the additives that go in there. I mean, we could talk about all the science. That's going to come up at our conference. The real message here is, yeah, we're in jeopardy in our future if we don't grab on, stand up, and fight and literally rise up together. And that is not a cliche. Rise up together means it doesn't matter what side of the aisle, we all want freedom. It's just that we're being told and we're siding with the divisive nature that our government has created. So we sit here and battle amongst ourselves in 3D and fall asleep while they grab the rights.
At midnight.
And while they enforce, you got it, at midnight, exactly, behind the scenes. And it's just, it's bizarre to realize how in front and in your face it really is. And I was hearing this conversation yesterday. One of my postal workers was listening to 1984. She was revisiting it. And she said, you know, I read this book when we were in 7th grade. I said, do you realize how never that's going to be in a school setting anymore? Why? You know, I mean, everything is gone. They're taking all that away. They've taken it away years ago. But the concept was how it broke her heart as she listened to it. It broke her heart because it's right in front of the face, but we can't talk about it because you're partisan. We're partisan, right? instead of realizing that we're more than partisan. We're human beings, and the government would like to say, and they do, we're all in this together. So then behave socially and do your thing, wear your mask and get your vaccines and do the social thing. And I say, really, at the cost and expense of what? Because you don't have my best interests in mind. You don't have our best interests in mind. And the cliche is putting us to sleep as though we are in this together. We're not in together. We aren't together. You, I, Luke, the rest of human beings that aren't in that government position or central banking position to call all those shots. Sorry if I went into an area there that we didn't want to go, but you can't separate the political agenda from the pandemic, as we know the pandemic. And until people are willing to see the connections with all this, it has been, and that's where I think this great awakening aspect is, the financial reset that we're going through, that they're doing behind the scenes, the manipulation of certain precious metals and things that are along the way, just crazy stuff, while we're distracted over here with Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss. They're grabbing all your stuff, folks.
Well, I know this episode's going a little bit longer than what we typically run. We do have an adjustment in the next 18 minutes, but I do have a few more questions if we have time for that. Do we have time, Luke?
I would say we have a good 7 minutes.
7 minutes. We want to know who your chiropractic heroes are, or who would, if you had a chance, who would you go to dinner with? Doesn't have to be chiropractic. Anybody in the history of time. If you could pick one person to go to dinner with, who would that be? And to turn the page back, who are some of your chiropractic heroes? And by the way, you only have 7 minutes.
These are going to be quicker answers. Well, I have had many mentors along the way. So I feel as though that might discredit some if I don't mention them. But the bottom line is this. I've been inspired with the philosophy of chiropractic. And when someone gets it, I can completely resonate. So when I hear an author language it, whether it's Kale, whether it's Homewood in the vertebral, the dynamics of the vertebral subluxation, whether it's BJ's or DD's work, and I see that and I read that, I mean, I would say BJ, because of his eclectic nature and just watching how he thought in terms of, he wasn't just a chiropractor, he was all in, but he was all in life. And he was extravagant with his means of life, from anywhere from smoking cigars to riding elephants and owning bizarre things like alligators. And so you look at this and go, that's what he was rich with. So I would find dinner with BJ would be probably pretty interesting. Mentors ahead of time for different reasons. I would say Dr. Lou Sportelli for the groundwork he laid and how he influenced the Wilk trials and how he was an educator, and seeing him in his old videos going up against reporters, and I forget what show it was, whether it was CBS or ABC, he was challenged and he fought right back, and he was logical and he was instrumental, and we're losing docs like that. So Fred Barge was influential for me early on. And Dr. Frank Savinsky, the late Dr. Frank Savinsky, was a mentor and dear friend of mine. He had a great deal of influence in my practice success and in who I am today. A lot of my presenting skills and whatnot came through him. I could go on, but it would be a little redundant. They're old timers that have truly paved the way for me to be able to do this, and to be chosen by my peers to sit in the seat I am right now. I feel like, even though I was recovering from cancer and my next seat was the presidency for the CSW, I was nervous and pumped. And once I took seat, and I'm surrounded by phenomenal individuals in our organization, so it's not any one person, but I feel like my fearless nature to confrontation, even though I have fears, but it's not about confronting. I love the challenge. This is my time. It's perfect. Like, I love being in the seat during COVID. I love being in the seat during this mess, because we need to have everyone standing up, and it's hard to stand up when you're being censored and you're being infringed upon and canceled for just standing up. So it's sometimes easier to sit by and not say what you want to say or need to say, because you're protecting what you have. But I see that as, what are we protecting? There's nothing there left. There's going to be nothing left. And that's what my mentors and that's what the predecessors have done for us. We practice today because of being jailed, as you and I both know. All of us know that. Wow. Who's getting jailed for giving adjustments right now? I'd go underground. I've said that many times. Take it away. I'm going underground, and I'll have a practice underground.
Well, it's very timely to have this conversation with you today. Could quite possibly be one of the favorite interviews I've ever done over the course of the past 3 years and 4 months. And I appreciate your fire and enthusiasm and your health. And I also appreciate having Luke as my co-producer for the show and forging forward. And whether people find us popular or not, or whether people find chiropractic popular or not, I believe in this profession 100%. And I think that, almost to tears, that the world needs some freaking truth when it comes to making informed decisions for not only their health, but their family's health. And gloves are off, man. We need to start supporting each other and thinking more long-term than what is a capital gain for today. And I believe that chiropractic is a capital gain for the future. Mm-hmm. And that's why I vested into chiropractic the way that I did 12 years ago. And I never looked back. And I just feel so blessed to have the team that helps us produce this show and that supports this crazy man over here that has this vision to create 1,000 shows to tell the chiropractic story, that we just, whether it's something we agree upon all the time, we just forge forward. And then you're not always going to have good days, and you're not always going to have like hoorays. But I really believe that what we're doing today is going to be instrumental to the future of this profession. And, the conversations that we've had in the past, they might not have been as poignant, and they might not have been as timely. But I really believe that what we're doing today is very poignant and very timely. So I just want to thank you for being our guest today.
Oh, absolutely, man. I am honored, and I'm thankful for you both. I've said that. And the props here too, by the way, is I know your passion, Jim, and Luke, for you both connecting like you do to tell this story for us as a profession. But really, it's not necessarily for us as a profession as much as it is for the rights of humankind to be able to have access to something other than pharma, to something other than the machine. And that's it. If we're the last primary care providers, I mean, you are our team. You're, and so are patients. I mean, I don't know how to say it. It's a union for the right of any human being. How about the child? If I take care of this sloppily, that means kids won't have access to care. That means they'll never experience their own health potential as a result, because I got lazy. And I'm not sit here saying that I'm altruistic and I'm so, non-self-serving. My motivation and fulfillment is making a difference. I'm actually drawn into the curiosity and feel like it's not even a choice. It's kind of why I was put here. I feel like I'm a warrior and I have warrior instincts and I'm here to defend it. But I also have a skill set in communication that isn't perfect by any means and needs a lot of work. But I have the capacity to go, all right, how can I deliver this message in my own unique way to help people rather than feel like I have to do it like everyone else does it, or whether I have to follow all those rules. It's like, to hell with that. How about we talk as human beings and say, are you aware how freaking amazing you are? this is how cool you are. I mean, it's like a new toy. 27 years I've been in practice, and patients are like, wow, you really like what you do. Just yesterday I heard it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? How could you not? Look what I get to do every day. I get to turn lights on. Like, oh, do you guys know you have a switch right here and it's been off for a while? 1,000 million ways to say what we do as chiropractors, and you guys are helping that story. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Wade, thank you for being our guest today. This was an episode full of fire and awesome knowledge, and we just want you to enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, guys. You rock. Thanks again.
And before you go, where can people go online if they want to learn more about you?
I have a podcast called Frankly Speaking with Dr. Wade. It's all one word. It's on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio. It's on your most notable ones. And I think I'll leave it at that. We've got some different things that I've been doing personally, but there's a few loose ends we're tying up there. People can access getbackfast.com if they have questions or chiropractic. And that's about it.
Awesome, Dr. Wade. Well, have a blessed rest of your day, and thank you for being our guest today.
Thanks, guys, and good luck traveling, my friend. I hope it works out for you.
All right, you too. Good luck on the weekend.
Thanks, guys. Ciao.
Right, see you. Talk soon.